Okay, so welcome to our webinar from the Arizona Teachers of English to Speakers of Other Languages, or AZTESOL. My name is Alyssa Nostis, and I am the Central Arizona Regional Representative on the AZTESOL board, so welcome. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about
نعم ماما.
AZTESOL, and then I will turn this over
لا
to...
بس أخلص بغسلهم.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, so AZTESOL reflects the unique multicultural landscape of Arizona, where educators from diverse backgrounds come together to support students from countless linguistic and cultural communities. Our mission is to advance professional excellence in English language teaching through advocacy, professional development, research, and collaboration amongst all of our stakeholders to serve the linguistically diverse learners in Arizona. Our vision is focused on a future where every English language learner in Arizona has access to high quality, culturally responsive education that empowers them to achieve academic success and civic participation. So these are our core values. They include educational equity and access, cultural and linguistic diversity, professional growth and collaboration, and the use of evidence-based practices. Who we serve, English as a second language teachers, which I'm sure many of you are, administrators, teacher candidates, and community partners. And we have different professional development opportunities throughout the year. These include an annual conference, which we hold in usually in October of every year, regional workshops, and online learning opportunities like this webinar today. Our membership benefits include professional networking, access to resources, an advocacy voice, and professional recognition like awards and scholarships. And how you can get involved? There are various volunteer leadership opportunities, including for our AZTESOL governing board, as well as other volunteer opportunities. So today's professional development event is being offered by Dr. Plamen Kushkiev, who is a Canadian college professor, researcher, and the 2024 Scholarship of Teaching and Learning Scholar Award recipient. His work examines the ethical integration of generative AI in language classrooms through critical AI frameworks. Plamen is a frequent presenter and plenary and featured speaker at international ELT conferences focusing on teacher identity, AI literacy, and educational innovation. He also serves as TESOL Toronto's membership officer and is the T4T 2026 conference co-chair. So the name of this webinar is Future Ready AI Fluency, Leveraging AI to Foster Critical Transferable Skills in ESL and EAP contexts. So by the end of this webinar, you will be able to identify conceptual and pedagogical gaps in curriculum design, instructional practices and learning concepts, reconceptualize transferable skills through AI-enhanced ESL and EAP contexts, and finally, revisit pedagogical frameworks to position learners as allies, co-creators, and active agents in the learning process. So now I will turn it over to Plamen to present his webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Alyssa. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon and good evening. It's currently 7:36 here in Toronto, and I can see some folks from Toronto also joining us. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and thank you, Arizona TESOL, for this opportunity. I'm really glad to be able to share some of the research insights, but also the pedagogical implications based on my own practices. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I hope you will be able to see the screen now. There is some audio embedded, so I'm going to make sure that I share the audio. Great. I hope you can see the screen well. All right. So over the course of the next 45 minutes or so, I invite you on a journey of learning, talking a little bit about AI fluency and AI literacy, and really how to take a pedagogical approach to the purposeful and ethical integration of those systems in our practices. As Alicia mentioned, I teach English for academic purposes and adult education courses at several colleges in Toronto, Canada. I hold a doctorate of education from the University of Sheffield in the UK. And in my doctoral work, I focus on the reconceptualization of my EAP teacher identity as pedagogy. For the past 2 years or so, I've been actively researching and playing with different generative AI systems. I'm also a TESOL Toronto membership officer, and I recently became TESOL Ontario Colleges and Universities um, committee member. And also, most recently, I have been selected as the outreach coordinator for TESOL conferences and their artificial intelligence and digital technology SIG. So I think it all started back in 2024 when I started playing with different chatbots, and I think I wasn't following the trend when everybody I just jumped on the opportunity to explore ChatGPT after it was born at the end or maybe the end of November back in 2022. I started looking at the affordances of a chatbot called Pi.ai, which was created by the Inflection a company, because it was advertised as the first emotionally intelligent bot. And one of my earliest publications around this area was actually sharing with the TESOL community how I use this bot for a grammar lesson. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code and this would take you to the um, publication. This is actually at the beginning of my thinking and my engagement with the chatbot. So I will ask for your mercy while engaging with these ideas. Now, fast forward to November 2025. This is the time when I actually published my first article, and this came as a result of my ethnographic study in the Canadian public college context. So I don't know about your context, but I don't often get that opportunity to sit and talk with other teachers. About how they're using AI. However, ChatGPT is always there, is always ready to listen, is always, it's always available. So I said, okay, maybe I can start and bounce some ideas off of ChatGPT. Of course, those chatbots are sycophantic, they are people pleasers, and they always come back with something positive. But I kept drilling into the feedback and the output, and I said, no, I want you to tell me if I'm missing out on something. I'm an experienced teacher. I've been teaching for 19, 20 years in different contexts. There has to be something different that I could do. And that culminated into a study that I shared on the previous screen. So if you're interested, you can scan the QR code, and this will take you to that study. As I said, for the past 2 years or so, I've been invited to speak on this topic at several conferences internationally. Every time I talk about this topic, it makes me think, really, because writing and speaking are modes of reflection, right? They're also methods of inquiry, and that's why I like to present on this topic, because when I verbalize and when I externalize my thoughts, it makes me reflect on certain implicit aspects, perhaps, of my teaching principles and my teaching philosophies that might have been like a little bit fossilized over the years. Um, so I would like to invite you to grab your phones, and you will scan this QR code. Actually, let me go to the next screen. There we go. And then you can scan this QR code, which is the same. I think I can also share the link to the chat if you're more comfortable here with the web browser. Yeah, and I know that we have a variety of backgrounds in this room, so I would like you to tell us what is your professional or academic role? And I will tell you why I'm asking you this in a couple of minutes. So the QR code should take you to Slido. You don't have to log in or anything. Oh, good, great. Here are some results coming in already. That's perfect. So we see EAP, professor, instructor, higher ed administrator, administration and ESL teacher, ESL and EAP professor. Vincent also shares in the chat, I teach in an IEP at a big US university. Great. So all of us are educators, but also we are involved, I think, in different capacities, I guess. Okay. So I'll be curious to see how you conceptualize, the purposeful integration of those chatbots in your practices, given your own, your reflexive identity, the way that you view yourself professionally, but also how you're viewed by your institution and your learners. I can see a leadership trainer, a link instructor. So for our friends from the United States, a link is language instruction for newcomers to Canada, just to clarify. It's a government-funded program. Tesla trainers as well. Great. Thanks everybody for sharing. Now, I would like to start off by really thinking about some of the affordances, but also some of the limitations of AI systems. This is what I call current, this current moment of generative AI use in EOT. I think we're all actively engaged in exploring the potential of chatbots to transform, hopefully, and adapt learning. But we're actively thinking about how to personalize and how to customize content. Generative AI can provide an easier access and a support for language tasks. It can increase efficiency, but also they can act as partners in reflection, right? They can help us analyze, they can help us question and improve our teaching practices, hopefully. And they can, and I think they can also help us think pedagogically with these systems. On the other side of the scale, I think we're all concerned about cognitive offloading, and I see that some researchers are talking about cognitive debt, even academic sloppiness. Even I hear terms like brain rot, right? I think we're all concerned, and we should probably have a revisit of the concept of critical thinking and creativity. Does AI diminish our ability to think in a critical way, or is it just a different way of thinking creatively and critically? There are voices that say that when students and teachers, of course, when they're using AI, it's masking their voices, right? And of course, issues around deepfakes and biases. I think overall, our concern is that AI can mimic a human behavior, and it can imitate humanness, right? And this is one of the embedded risks of using it. If there's something else that is not on the screen, and I'm sure that maybe you're thinking of something else, feel free to share in the chat, whether in terms of the limitations or the affordances. When I started integrating those systems in my practices, and through my engagement with different communities of practice internationally, it made me think and kind of reflect on the different barriers, the possible barriers to the ethical integration of generative AI. I think you will agree with me that when students go to college and university, one of the important learning outcomes is to learn how to think critically, how to reason. So I think it's all about this slow mode um, of thinking and reasoning. And that might be a problem because AI makes everything fast, right? Um, at the same time, I was reflecting on the way that our courses are designed, our assessment practices, our instructional approaches. When our courses were designed, they were not designed with AI in mind, right? And now sometimes I feel that when we're trying to integrate AI, it might feel like an add-on, And one can easily go about teaching the whole semester without even talking about AI, without even mentioning it, right? And just pretend that maybe the students are not using it. However, in my opinion, the most serious maybe or the most significant barrier to the purposeful and timely integration of those systems is learners' attitude. And for that reason, I have started to create spaces in my classes where students can open up. I have started to create spaces of trust and transparency where students, as I said, they can share what kind of chatbots they're using, what they're using them for, and and also, have their buy-in in our assessment practices. Now, against the background of this slide, I would like you to also share with us, in your opinion or in your context, what is the biggest challenge to purposefully integrating generative AI in your context and in your practices? I'll be very curious to see if you have similar concerns, similar challenges, or maybe something else. Is it curriculum? Is it um, the ethos of the institution? Is it your students? Is it yourself? And I think this can loop back to the previous question where I asked you if you identify as a professor, as an educator, as an instructor, as an administrator. I think this should make us kind of reconsider our attitude and our position vis-a-vis generative AI. So somebody says, let me just get rid of, yeah. Somebody says, time to learn by experimenting alone and time to experiment. I agree. We're already busy with different aspects of our teaching practices. So integrating or thinking about the integration of AI is just one more thing that we have to do. A faculty are not feeling comfortable. I'll be curious to see why. Trust issues. I cannot sometimes distinguish what is human work and what is AI. Yes, and this will be an increasingly common issue because now the chatbots are that sophisticated and we have the humanizers, right? Actually, the students are one step ahead of us sometimes because they get an output from one chatbot and they put it into a humanizer and then they get the output and then they put it in the third chatbot. And by the time they submit it to you, it's already started to feel like like a human generated output. AI is too helpful. Yes, it makes learning and engagement fast. And as educators, we know that learning and thinking are, they're slow, they're messy, they are organic processes. So if something is happening too fast, probably we're not doing it right. Right. I love this expression. I wanted to scaffold, not to serve answers on a platter. Absolutely, yes. Getting students to use AI as a tool to enhance their learning experience rather than as an easy way out. Okay. Well, I think that comes with, as we said, creating an environment of trust and transparency, but also us as educators modeling ethical use of the systems. I just want to give a couple more seconds because I think this is important. Students, digital literacy. Yeah, I I feel that sometimes it's a wrong concept that the students being digital natives, so-called, they are able to operate and to evaluate generative AI by default, but I don't think this is the case always. So yeah, this is a good point as well. Well, I think we have more questions than answers at this point in time, which is all right. We're in a learning curve. We're learning, we are experimenting, we're innovating. Okay, maybe 5 more seconds. adding it into my pedagogy of teaching correctly, using it as a tool correctly as a guide. Okay, thanks everybody. Now, I stopped thinking of AI as a tool. I have to be honest with you, and this is something that I'll be discussing in a second. Now, to provide some context for our discussion tonight, I looked at the World Economic Forum's 10 a top 10 fastest growing skills by 2030. Can you share in the chat what do you think those skills are? What are the skills that are, college and university graduates are expected to have in the modern labor force? I'm curious to see what you think. Maybe you already know this, but I'm just curious to see what are the skills that we should be helping our learners foster and develop. Kristen, high digital literacy and flexibility for sure. Sandeep says integrating AI in the conventional job duties and responsibilities, self-sufficiency. Okay, so you're focusing on soft skills, and that's quite interesting. So we're actually going back to this human element, the human in the loop aspect of all of that. You're right. So unsurprisingly, I believe, the first, or the top three are AI and big data, networks and cybersecurity, technological literacy. But look at this. Skills 4, 5, 6, and 7, as you correctly pointed out, have to do with soft skills, or in the context of Arizona, I believe they're called durable skills. So this has been my guiding light, really, and all of my pedagogical interventions and everything that I have been doing with my learners for the past 2 years or so, I've been actively thinking how to help my learners develop those skills. How can I help them transfer more than we normally do with them in terms of linguistic repertoire, or helping them develop discourse and discursive capabilities. I also looked at Arizona's Department of Education and their college and career readiness standards. And of course, unsurprisingly, they are actually quite similar to what we have here in Ontario. In Ontario, we call them essential employability skills. And I'm not surprised, as I said, that is a similar set of skills. So capabilities such as complex communication, which means listening and persuading others, using technical terms with precision, collaboration, contributing personal strengths to a team, respecting diverse opinions and contributions, using technology effectively, thinking and innovation. So integrating technological knowledge with reasoning to devise solutions, compose plans, but also transfer skills across contexts and genres. There is also innovative and self-direction, a set of skills which pertain to performing tasks independently, setting goals, and also demonstrating accountability. Now, I was a little bit pleasantly surprised by the last one, which is called intergenerational and cross-cultural competence. I'm not surprised by the cross-cultural competence, but I was surprised that the ministry remembered to include intergenerational competence as well. So this pertains to communicating with sensitivity to differences in culture, age, and physical abilities, right? And then I looked at what those skills could mean when we transfer them to the academic context and academic environment. course, as educators, we are teaching our students how to be critical thinkers, how to evaluate sources, how to find credible sources, how to transfer information across context and genres. We are helping them with their writing. Now, I know that writing might take a different shape and form in AI enhanced context. But I would like to loop back to that comment that AI is a tool. And I have to tell you that I started to think of AI as infrastructural because I don't think that AI is just a discrete classroom tool. Its impact and its omnipresence, I think, has necessitated a shift in our thinking. It's a lot more than a tool, right? And I think that it encourages us to think how teaching and learning are organized, if that makes sense. And then I played with Napkin AI, and I played with Google Gemini, and I was actively thinking about um, if I were a student at an Arizona college or a university, what are the set of skills and capabilities, a skill set that I should have developed, so that when I hit the labor market, I will be, I will be hired. And I think this infographic portrays it well. So, as we said, collaboration is a top skill. Working effectively in diverse teams, which is the case in the context of Arizona, of course, but also taking a design thinking approach to solving problems. I think graduates are also expected to be creative communicators, if that makes sense, and they should be able to express themselves in different modes and modalities, right? And globally and locally, they should be digital citizens, right? Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, am I supposed to be teaching my students this? Are my students developing those skills in my classes? As a language educator, how much of this is covered in my learning outcomes? I don't know about you, but this is what has been on my mind, and sometimes it doesn't let me sleep at night. If I if I'm helping my students enough for all of this, and at the same time, I've been thinking my role as an educator, and that's why I started by asking you about how you perceive yourself professionally. Um, so we are at the intersection of this conceptual place where we should be content experts, especially if we're teaching like a content-heavy course. We are learning facilitators. I think we should be AI mentors. We should be ethically modeling the use of AI. At the same time, we should be one step ahead of our learners in terms of our AI fluency and AI literacy. And we should be guiding our students how to foster those durable or soft skills or skills for success or transferable skills, whatever you want to call them. I don't know if you agree with me, but this is what I believe my role as adult educator it is nowadays. Now, I would like to move on and offer you several frameworks that have been very useful that I've drawn upon in my own work and my study. Anthropics, which actually recently has gained some traction given the events around the world. When I designed this slide, actually, I didn't have this in mind, I promise. But I like Claude. I've been experimenting with Claude, and I was comparing the output of Claude, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, and of course ChatGPT. Now, they have a free course for for educators now, and they talk about, the three different elements maybe of being fluent with AI. And this is what I started applying in my classes. Now, everything that I'm doing with the chatbots, I am thinking, is this automation? Is it making certain tasks easier and faster? Is it augmentation? Am I enhancing my teaching performance or maybe the learning experiences of my students? Or is it human agency? So let me show you. They say in terms of those three aspects of developing our AI fluency, they say there are four core competencies to that fluency. First is delegation, or thinking actively about what is it that I want to accomplish through my interaction with the chatbots. How much of cognitive offloading I should be doing? How much of the mental labor I should be delegating to the machine, and how much of that I should be doing myself. And then there is description, which I think it pertains to writing effective prompts, and I have a couple of slides coming about that. I think now those chatbots are more sophisticated and more advanced in a way that even if your chatbot is not, if your prompt is not that, uh, it's not it's not that effective or complete. I feel that the chatbot kind of understands what is it that you wanted to generate. Nevertheless, I think that prompt engineering remains a vital skill here. And then there's discernment, or the critical evaluation of the output. And of course, last but not least is diligence, or human in the loop, or how to interact responsively with those systems and how to identify biases. I don't know if you're actively thinking about hallucinations these days. I don't know if you're thinking about deep fakes. I don't know if you're thinking about identifying biases, because everybody talks about, biases that might be baked into the data. But when it comes to our day-to-day, or our regular interactions with the chatbots, how much of reflection or critical reflection are we really engaging in terms of biases? I have to be honest and tell you that I don't really think about that unless there's something very, very obvious that is biased, or maybe a deep fake. Now, UNESCO has a very comprehensive framework. It has one for teachers and one for learners. They might be working on an updated version because this one is from 2024. And as the arrows are pointing to aspect number 4 and aspect number 5, so I've been thinking, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, how to take like a pedagogical approach. What does thinking with AI mean in my context? So to me, AI enhanced pedagogy means connecting with the students, maintaining my teaching, emotional and cognitive presence in all of those interactions with my learners, but also building spaces where students can explore AI systems without being judged, that they are involved in cheating. And I just want to say something. This morning I started teaching a new course, and I didn't introduce myself, but I asked my learners to actually go to ChatGPT and search for my name. It took them a moment to really grab their phones and open ChatGPT, and they said, "But we were told that we are not supposed to use ChatGPT. Why are you asking us to go to ChatGPT?" So I'm so surprised that we are working in silos. Like our learners are using the chatbots, and so are we, maybe for different purposes. So I was thinking, why not bring that conversation to our classrooms, and why not actually collaborate with the learners? Why not have the students as our partners? Why not have the students as our thinking partners, right? Um, why not guide our students to create AI guidelines, right? Or even our classroom policies. Why not use the AI assessment scale that I'm going to show you in a couple of slides and agree with our students how much of AI should or shouldn't be used for each assignment, right? At the same time, as I said, I cannot envision my development as an educator. I cannot envision my own learning as an educator without AI now. I, I don't know about you, maybe share in the chat, but all of my PD, everything that I have been doing is connected with AI. I'm biased, obviously. I'm pro AI. And I think that is actually, it's absolutely an amazing invention. Actually, some scholars call it an extension to humanity, right? So when I'm thinking of my own development as an educator, I have I have to connect it to I believe. Um, and finally, or actually, this is the second last framework. I'm sorry that I'm boring you maybe with this, but I think it gives context really. The Digital Education Council also came up with an AI literacy framework. As you can see on your screen, dimension number 4 pertains to human centricity, emotional intelligence, and creativity. Um, so if I want to bring that conversation back to the context of Arizona, according to the guidelines of the ministry, by the time an Arizona student completes their K-12 journeys, the standards aim for them to possess durable skills. Also, critical thinking or the ability to analyze complex systems and data, and to perform executive functions such as planning, organizing, and self-regulation. Now, I was very happy to see that all of those documents and policies and frameworks center around humanness, center around agility. And I looked at this term, agility, in the context of using AI, and I think we can define it as the capacity to build capacity, right? Or learn how to learn as technologies and industries shift. Finally, uh, this is the last one, and then I'm going to move on to something more fun, hopefully. Last month, the US Department of Labor published Artificial Intelligence Literacy Framework. This is brand new, it's fresh, it's from February 2026. As you can see on your screen, I looked at it. It has different regulations for different sectors and industries, and obviously I looked for education. So they want us to think of a literacy as a foundational competency in terms of an essential set of competencies that allow individuals to use and evaluate a systems. And they also talk about the modern workplace relevance. So as AI is becoming central to modern professional landscapes. And they also talk about workplace readiness. As we said, how labor ready are our graduates, right? What are the future skills that they will have developed by the end of their time with the college? Something a bit more teachery, as in terms of the curriculum design. So they say that we should be actively redesigning curriculum, our teaching methods, and assessment strategies to include dedicated AI literacy modules. I don't know if your institution has one. I don't know if your institution has mandated students to do any kind of AI training, but we should be doing that apparently. And this should help with experiential learning. So AI serves as a powerful tool to enable and enhance hands-on and experiential learning opportunities. And something that I very much liked and very much appreciated about their framing of AI literacy is AI as an augmentative layer, which they define as individuals being able to perform at higher level evaluation, if that makes sense. So you have the QR code, so you can actually refer to this document. I'm going to skip this part if you don't mind, because I want to jump to the more hands-on and more pedagogical strategies. With my learners, we have been actively thinking and collaborating what makes an effective prompt. So I've been collating different prompts from my learners, and they've been sharing with me and with their classmates based on their experience what makes an effective prompt. So what you see on your screen here is what we think. I mean, with my learners, what we think as an effective prompt. Of course, we need to assign a role, or we need to give the bot a clear goal or a task. There has to be some context. You can also have a clear format or maybe the output. And you can also add certain guide rails, maybe, or do's and don'ts. If you want, you can engage with this free training. This is from the government of the UK. So they have a free A literacy module. I would just skip to that part where they talk about prompt engineering. As you can see, the sample prompt, they actually remind us that each prompt should have 6 elements. So number 1 is the task, as you can see here. Number 2 is the giving the bot persona or a particular role. Number 3 is quantity. Number 4 is the structure. And number 5 is the topic, context. And number 6 is the audience or different constraints. And yes, I'm happy to share a copy of this presentation. Of course, you can read more. I have hyperlinked this training. I think it's pretty useful. So for you guys, what I think it could do is you could take one of your classroom tasks and or maybe assessment, and then you can follow this 6-element prompt structure, and then you can redesign maybe or revisit this task to be AI enhanced. So in my research, what I started doing is at the beginning of the semester, I started sending surveys asking my students, are you using any chatbots? What chatbots are you using? And then I started to reconceptualize my role as an educator, and I started to actively think how to help my learners foster that literacy. I started to model and my own experience with the chatbots. If a particular task is AI generated or is AI enhanced, I always disclose that. And for all of my classes now, for all of the assignments, at the beginning of the semester, I create an AA code of ethics or a set of guidelines. And for all of the assignments, before my students start working on the assignments, actually, we agree on how much AI should or shouldn't be used, right? Or this is what I call taking more of a social cognitive approach. It's like two brains thinking together. At the beginning of the course, instead of introducing myself, I enter my summary, professional summary, into Notebook Copilot, and I ask it to kind of generate a video overview that I send to my learners. they can watch and learn about me in several different modalities. And of course, this is overly positive. It gives them the feeling that I'm the best educator in the world. Well, I'm not. And as early as this first or the second class, we start to think about some of the limitations
So, what really makes a leader in education?
um, of those systems. If you haven't tried Brisk Teaching, this is an amazing. It's a Chrome extension. You can easily download it, and then you can also, oops, you can also turn your summary into a podcast of 2 minutes or so, and then you can send it to your learners. Now, sorry, here. Something a bit more practical. So in terms of automation, what I like to do is I like to help my students recycle some of the vocabulary that we learn in a particular topic. I ask them to use the chatbots for ideation, maybe, or organizing different ideas. However, my favorite activity is image generation. So I ask my learners to actually use several different chatbots. Usually their favorite ones are Google Gemini and ChatGPT. And I share different images like that. And then we actually talk why the images are similar or why they're different. And that may lead into our discussion into what are some of the biases that might be baked into the training data. So, it always works. As an extension of this activity, actually, I always ask them, so based on this experience, tell me how similar or how different is the AI-generated image from what you had in mind, right? And this leads us to a class discussion about which are the chatbots that are better at image generation and why. So there always has to be some kind of extension activity. Something else, I used ChatGPT to generate the text. It was on the topic of challenges of newcomers to Canada, and then I turned that into a podcast. So I I asked my students to kind of engage with this source in two different modalities. So in narrative, but also in audio. And Brisk can I can absolutely do that. Something else that I would invite you to absolutely try is Google AI Studio. It's amazing. What I normally do is I go to ChatGPT or maybe Google Gemini. I generate if it is a dialogue or the text, and then I play with Google AI Studio, and I enter this into Google AI Studio, and it creates the audio. So here I'm showing you an example of a student who is at an Arizona college asking about information about the course. I just want to play one part of it, just to get a feel of what Google A Studio can do for us.
Hello, welcome to the admissions office. Are you interested in our English as
I hope you can hear the sound, right? Okay, good.
Hello, welcome to the admissions office. Are you interested in our English as a second language program to prepare for your future career?
Yes, I am looking for a program that focuses on more than just grammar. I want to develop transferable skills like complex communication.
That is exactly our focus here in Arizona, as we integrate professional skills like collaboration and critical thinking directly into our language curriculum.
So it's not that robotic, right? It sounds almost authentic, and it can work with different, it can modulate the voices. Let's say if you want the voice of an older person or a person of a particular background, if you want to space them out, and you can download it, and then you can send it to your students. You can do this as a listening activity, and as an extension of that activity, you can have a discussion about why is this a student sounding in this way? Is this what you believe? a person of this background should sound, right? There's a number of things here that we can do. For other tools that are text to audio, you can also try Natural Reader, Love Voice, and 11 Labs. However, my favorite, absolutely favorite these days is Google AI Studio, and I absolutely invite you to give it a try. In terms of augmentation, and I'll be quick here. I like to use the chatbots to help my learners get extra practice in terms of maybe receptive skills or maybe language systems. They often have problem identifying, let's say, the main idea of a text or maybe what is the author's purpose. I give them the prompt like this, and I ask them to work with one or two different chatbots, and I told them that they have to prompt the bot to act as a tutor, so that it generates the activity or maybe the paragraph one by one. And then there's always an extension, right? I always ask them to share either in class or in pairs or in like a padded wall activity. What was the experience like with this? And then I make them think, is the prompt that I gave you effective? Do you think that you had to add something to that prompt, right? So I start to make them think about prompt engineering a little bit, and for them to create their own understanding of how to effectively work with with the systems. I want to show you several activities. Lisa, are we okay for time?
We
Do we
have
have
about 7 more minutes.
7 minutes? Okay, all right. I'll be quick. Something that I like doing with my students is the popular stop-like activity, especially for assessment. So at the beginning of the semester, I create different scenarios like this, and these scenarios are based on my course assignments. And then I ask my students to read a mini scenario, discuss with a partner, and decide if they can use AI, which is number 3, or they can't, which is number 1, or maybe they can use it, but with caution. This makes them think right from the get-go. So I think it's a very useful activity that one should try. One of my first assignments is for them to write a personal narrative. And I don't tell them if they should or they shouldn't use AI, but I ask them to write an AA statement. So after they write the essay or the paragraph, and I tell them, I want you to be honest here, and I want you to tell me how much of AI use did you use and what did you use it for? So I want to see how honest they are, and I start to plant those seeds of trust, and I show them that I'm an ally, that I like AI, and that if they like it too, we can actually collaborate. In terms of agency, at the beginning, I started to teach prompt engineering towards the end of the semester. Now I start at the beginning of the semester. As I said, I make them think about prompts. I make them think about what makes an effective prompt. Um, I I make them think about some of the biases as well. I make them also compare the affordances of different chatbots. Here is an example of an activity that I like doing. It's called the critical analysis of outputs. So they work with a chatbot or maybe with different chatbots. They generate the output and then they identify lapses in knowledge. This is after you have taught this this topic. They then exchange their analysis and they share with the class what the chatbot actually didn't do that well. And something else that I asked them to do is we use the CRAP test to analyze, the credibility of sources. So I asked them to read an article, and this article is from Conversation 2023. 4 college professors in the United States talk about their opinion if AI should or shouldn't be allowed in college classrooms. So I asked ChatGPT to run the crab test, and then I gave it to my students, and I told them, okay, I want you to analyze the analysis of ChatGPT, because I don't think that ChatGPT, I did a very good job with the crab test. There's another example of an activity that I like my students to do, and this is based on Rachel Toncelli's work. She called this think, pair, share with AI. So you give them an AI-generated explanation of a course concept after you have taught it yourself. And then the students analyze what AI has missed out, or maybe didn't get right, or maybe left out completely. And then they share their ideas with the whole class. And this activity validates your expertise as the professor and your teaching present, but also it foregrounds your students' experiences and role in your classroom. And I think it also enhances critical thinking abilities. Um, and of course, I I asked them to go back in their chat history and take maybe two or three or four of the prompts that they have used, and I give them this prompt, and then they copy paste the history of the prompts that they have used before. And they work with the chatbot, and then they are learning how to improve their prompts. And then we actually have a class discussion about what makes an effective prompt, right? And I want to leave you with this. I don't know if you've seen it, but I find it very, very useful. This is the AI assessment scale, and luckily it's also available in different languages. I think it's a very useful guiding framework for our engagement with AI. Whether you don't allow your students to use AI at all, or maybe you are experimenting with different, I don't know, um, phases of your assignment, right? Or maybe for formative assessment, it's a very useful document. And as a bonus for coming out tonight, I wanna show you this. There's a chatbot that is actually trained based on this assessment scale. So if you're curious about how to enhance a particular assessment, especially if your assessment has no AI whatsoever, you can enter this assessment here, and then you can work with the chatbot, and then it can give you insights and ideas on how to add or how to make it AI enhanced. So this has been my approach in terms of automation, augmentation, and agency. And I would like to leave you with some implication for practices, if that's okay, Alyssa, if you allow me just 2 more minutes. I think, it takes a lot of intentionality, transparency, and ethical considerations when we design learning experiences for our students. I think it makes us kind of revisit our teacher's role and make us think about who our students are, what their learning needs are, right? And also, more important, how to humanize our teaching and how to, take on this collaborative approach. In terms of thinking pedagogically, I would say that we need to think pedagogically with AI and our learners, not in their absence, right? And I think that it's our job to kind of gradually scaffold our learners' ability to use AI systems for different course tasks and formative assessments. And I would really encourage you to think about specific ways how we can collaborate with your students, maybe to create guidelines, maybe to create like a code of ethics, or maybe just to gain ideas on how you can enhance your classroom practices. In terms of assessment, of course, we know that assessment has to be for and as learning. So assessment has to be frequent, it has to be low stake, authentic, and relevant. And that's why I think it's really important that we collaborate with our learners, and then we gradually integrate AI into formative elements of our assessment. In this way, we can align our teaching approach with assessment and also learning outcomes of our course. I don't think we have time for this last activity. These are some of my references. If you email me, I'm happy to share a copy of this presentation. We actually don't have time, Alyssa, for this, right? But I will invite just everybody to think about if there is something that you can have as a takeaway from the session tonight. So hopefully you have at least one takeaway. Thank you so much. I am happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you. If we have a question or a comment.
There's a question. There is a comment in the chat. I don't know if you saw that, Plamen.
Is it
from Stephanie?
Yes.
She says that she liked how you shared how you personally are using AI with your students, this collaborative approach. She wants to code and share some levels of AI usage and guidelines at the outset of her course over the next year to enhance all practices and assessment. Some changes are necessary. So lots of work ahead.
I have to tell you that our students can be an excellent source of ideas. When you start doing that with your students, you will see that they're so creative, and more importantly, they actually start to open up. And I think that this is the purpose of our classes. I was thinking, why should my students come to my class? They can learn on their own. So there has to be something that actually keeps them here. So having their buy-in, having them as allies, and actually making them feel appreciated and their ideas validated is what we should be doing. And I have to tell you, a lot of them are very advanced, or maybe they're very proficient in other use of AI. So you can definitely tap into their ideas and their knowledge. Thank you for sharing, Stephanie.
Okay, so I think I wanted to thank you, Plamen, and I want to thank everyone for coming to this webinar. We appreciate it. If you don't mind, I'll just share my screen really quickly.
For sure, yes. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say, if you'd like, please feel free. We have more webinars coming up. Please feel free to sign up for those. And this is a way that you can connect with us at AZ TESOL. But thank you again, Plamen, for a very interesting webinar. We're so glad you're able to share some of your ideas, because I think that's what we're missing, are these ideas that we can apply and apply to our classroom. So we do appreciate that you're taking the time to do so.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.